It took 22 years, the wild evolution of WoW's graphics. Okay.
Of WoW graphics. The evolution of WoW graphics went from
5 polygon models
to dynamic weather effects and super expressive faces. It's astonishing to see how basically the old Warcraft 3 engine evolved into what you see currently, and you're going to see it all today.
It's actually quite crazy.
With some tech leaps not even we knew about. Alpha World of Warcraft set the stage for a lot bigger things to come. And hey, we can all appreciate the roots, even if those roots look filthy and rotten to the core. Sorry.
No, listen. I kind of like that old school style. I don't know, man. I know I'm probably a boomer or like I'm in the minority here, but I feel like this old school, like kind of bad looking like graphic, it has like yeah, soul. Exactly, that's the word. It has like soul to it, and it has like, it feels like it's a little bit more of like a unique thing, right? It's kind of vibe. It's a vibe.
I might have been talking about the female no model, but clearly a lot of stuff is incomplete. And as we know, not everything made it into the live game eventually.
Yeah.
The first iteration of WoW's engine was made from the actual Warcraft 3 engine,
This
and
is
that
so cool.
translated quite a lot into the visuals of the MMO. I mean, it's one thing to see those models and effects from a bird's eye view, like in the strategy game. It's another to get down among them and cringe at the details.
It's not that cringe though, okay? It just looks very different. I remember when WoW first got announced, I did this as well in Warcraft 3. I was like, oh my god, how would it be like running around in the world with my character, you know? Once all games have hyper-realistic graphics, all games will look the same? Yeah, probably, yeah. Amazing for its time. Yeah, if you look at from where it was made, the graphics are actually, like, they hold up really well.
Animations from Alpha were slightly different and polished once the game launched and dances. I mean, this looks fine, but we ended up with the Macarena for the human female as an example. That and a lot of textures were eventually improved for ground effects. Possibly the biggest changes were the character models. Very early look at the trolls, orcs, and taurens can cause nightmares in the younger audience. Please be advised. Clearly the menu.
Oh shit! I see he puts like the thing down there, so I'll put my camera above that so y'all can see like where we are in the world. There you go.
New and character screens receive massive upgrades.
Oh my god, that looks so cursed. Oh my god, that looks cursed.
Still, we have to appreciate the fact that these were not the final race models we ended up with, because holy goddamn shit. Overall, the production of the game did feel a bit rushed even when vanilla launched in 2004. The overall graphics were inferior for its era and put a lot of people off from the...
Really? Did it really? I remember when I played World of Warcraft for the first time back in the day, I thought the graphics were insane. I thought it was so insane. But like, I mean, in 2005, I remember it looking good. Right? Same year as Half-Life 2. Yeah, I mean, it looked good for its time.
Textures of trees and bushes, all the way to some critter models. Obviously, from the alpha we received...
Sorry about that, my bad.
Massive improvements, but with the focus of accessibility for most machines at the time, vanilla WoW kept a low polygon count, which resulted in blocky looking characters and landscapes. The texture resolution was fairly low, giving off blurry and unappealing textures at times, more to do with the memory and storage constraints for the era's PC specs.
I still think it looks amazing though. For its time, this looks crazy good. And I also think it's like a it's also like a partially a reason why they could, like, you know, make it such an open world game. I played Menten 2 before graphics was insane about. Yeah, Menten 2, what was it, like, EverQuest? Yeah, like, it looks good, man. Like, when you compare it to, like, the games at that time, right? Okay, there's a very low polygon screenshot of EverQuest, right? But this looks amazing, man.
And shadows were also very simplistic. You can even see an improvement between vanilla and the current classic servers, let alone Dragonflight. The animations for the characters were limited and clearly antiquated compared to the present-day Dragonflight variations.
Okay, but you're looking at a 19-year development in that. I just like the older style more, personally. I feel like the current style of models look very, like, Disney. I think that's the best way I can really put it. They look super Disney.
Art style of Vanilla WoW was intentionally stylized to accommodate the hardware limitations, which also meant that the game's visuals were not as realistic or detailed as what players might expect from contemporary games.
Cool,
the Burning Crusade launched in early 2007, and for its time, the graphical improvements introduced helped to elevate the visual quality of the game and create a more immersive experience for players. As for the environment, TBC introduced the new continent of Outland, which featured stunning and otherworldly landscapes. The environments were more detailed, colorful, and diverse, providing players with a fresh and visually captivating experience. The disconnect from the original world was also strong, with Outland being very cosmic, broken, and magically floating in the twisting nether compared to Vanilla's grounded depiction of continents, islands, and mountains.
I think I don't necessarily agree with that, though, because I feel like that's just like a different, like, it's because we're like in an outworld. If you go into the Caverns of Time, there's still similar things to like the TBC. Like, a lot of TBC stuff was in the Caverns of Time as well, right? Like, it's just like a lot of what I'm getting from this so far is that, like, higher polygons equals better, right? And I don't think that's necessarily true. But yeah.
Overall, the expansion utilized higher resolution textures for everything, resulting in a better world and characters, but also improved upon the lighting and shadows, together with a better visual for the water and weather effect.
No, not necessarily.
2008 marked the release of Wrath of the Lich King. To this day, the most critically acclaimed expansion. The environments in Northrend took a big up in overall textures and models. They were more diverse, detailed, and expansive, offering players a visually stunning and atmospheric experience, possibly the most immersive zones they have ever made to this day. Both player characters and NPCs received more nuanced facial expressions and lifelike movements, improving overall visual storytelling, but also adding once again to the...
Oh no, dude. Like, the Wrath King trailer is so good, but the way that they talk in these trailers just looks so weird, man. Doctor Who, thank you for the 6 months.
Immersion factor, together with the environment, the higher resolution textures were clearly a significant upgrade and likely contributed heavily to the overall appreciation of the expansion. Note here that the capabilities of the graphic cards and processors were also starting to really accelerate, and this was quite evident on the improvements in Wrath and even more evident in expansions to follow. One of the most impactful spell and ability effects received was the fire effect that was showcased early in such dungeons as Utgard Pinnacle. A feat that was of course accompanied by more advanced lighting and shading, creating more realistic and immersive lighting effects even for a game such as World of Warcraft. This added depth and atmosphere to the game world, especially in the darker and shadowy areas. Water rendering also was further enhanced, making bodies of water look even more realistic and reflective. Water effects in this expansion contributed to the overall visual spectacle, particularly in zones with ice.
I don't think there's enough. A lot of people hate on the water in vanilla. I don't really think it's that bad, honestly, man. It looks pretty good for what it is. I had a shitty PC and played it all on low. I didn't even notice it. Honestly, same, man. I think it's just like, it's interesting to me to see the difference in how WoW graphics developed, right? Because, like, they've changed a lot. Like, it's a whole different game nowadays, and it's like a slow... It's a slow like process going into like a different art style, right? Like, year by year, they introduce like new shadings, new stuff, new polygon upgrades, whatever the hell, and slowly it turns into a whole different thing, right? I always play with low water quality. Yeah, same, man.
Landscapes and frozen lakes, which were made even more impressive with the incorporated atmospheric effects, falling snow, and blizzards in Northrend, adding to the wintry theme of the expansion. Wrath of the Lich King introduced a new technology called phasing, which allowed for dynamic changes in the game world based on players' progression in certain quests or storylines. This feature added a new layer of immersion and impacted the player's experience, showcasing how the game's graphics adapted to reflect changing circumstances. All of this culminated with a detailed raid and dungeon design featuring epic and grandiose architecture, adding to the sense of adventure and challenge. At the peak of its popularity, World of Warcraft took a bold turn with Cataclysm in 2010 by completely revamping the old world we call Azeroth. New terrain.
That's where WoW changed for the first time a lot, man. The best expansion? I don't know. I mean, we know Cataclysm is gonna come out later this year. I'll play it. I'll give it a try. I have absolutely no idea what to expect. You know? All I know is that I'm gonna be leveling in Vashir because it's the best leveling zone ever made. But I don't know if I'll like it or not. I really don't. Maybe I'm gonna end up loving it. Maybe I'll end up hating it. I don't know. I'll give it a try though, for sure.
Quest hubs and
Cata was great. I mean, I've heard a lot of different opinions of Cata.
Were improved with better environmental details and terrain textures, making the first and only time in WoW's history when the old worlds were completely revitalized. Since then, we have had changes to old quests here and there, but nothing to this scale, shaking the very foundations of what players grew up with, especially for those that started in vanilla WoW. Water rendering was further enhanced, making water bodies appear more realistic and visually appealing.
So that's what. So there was in Cataclysm they did that. Cataclysm was really the big turning point in like everything, in the world, in like how the game was played, in like the graphics, everything. It's a huge turning point for everything. You will like it. I mean, I hope so. I don't get why some people are being so, you know, negative about WoW. Always like, this is gonna flop, this is gonna suck. But I always like, I hope I'm gonna love it. Obviously, if I love it, that's great. You know, I'm gonna have a lot of fun with it, but I just don't know yet. You could say that it was cataclysmic. Yo, Ilu, thank you for the prime.
Only weather effects like rain, snow, and sandstorms were improved, contributing heavily to the immersion of the game world. As for the characters, they continued to be refined and enhanced with better models, textures, and animations, together with new spell and ability effects, offering more variety and visual impact during gameplay, especially when going into the new dungeons and raids, which featured more intricate and visually impressive design, immersive environments, and challenging encounters that were even more emphasized with the boosted phasing technology, having all of the zones change based on the player's quest progression. The two new races introduced, Worgens and Goblins, were the first ones to use a more complex rig with added polygons, resulting in a clear visual distinction from all the other races and laying the ground for what was to come in Mists of Pandaria. And
it does look very different. Oh, that was an awkward pause. It does look very different though. People were tired of staleness after 6 years of vanilla. At the time, big changes were needed, even if people look through nostalgia at Classic. Oh yeah, I think for sure. That's what I'm saying. It was a big, bold move, for sure, in terms of like, you know, the change. But it was something that the players kind of needed. In a way, Cataclysm was WoW too, because they changed everything, right? Yeah, this is Ghostcrawler. Yeah. A game has to change at some point. You can't keep the same thing forever, except vanilla WoW. But yeah, I agree.
That happened in 2012 when we first saw the Pandaren models. Rigging and polygon count increased even further, resulting in some of the most fluid combat animations and an incredible facial expression palette, which was quite impressive at the time. We went from faces having a couple of textures, moved to faces having particular parts and bumps, eyes, cheeks moving naturally. The expansion would eventually receive praise for its beautiful environment, engaging character animations, and overall visual polish, contributing to the ongoing success of the game. The expansion featured an art direction influenced by Asian culture and aesthetics. This unique art style extended to the architecture, landscape.
I will say mob look really good. Like the zones look amazing. I will give them that. It looks really, really nice. Right? Mob zones are so awesome. I agree. They look really nice. Sarah Manis, thank you for the 10 months.
And character designs,
they did a great job
providing
of
players with a fresh and visually distinct experience. It added new creature models and animations with an emphasis on detail and realism. Creatures in Pandaria showcased more expressive movements and lifelike behaviors, breathing more life into the open
cool to see
world. The expansion utilized advanced particle effects, adding more visual flair to spells and abilities and environmental effects. The improvement was also visible with better water rendering, better reflections, and realistic movements in Pandaria's lakes, lakes, rivers, and coastal areas, with improved lighting and atmospheric changes as time progressed contributed to a more immersive world. And let's not forget that some of the most epic moments in the expansion took advantage of not only the upgraded phasing technology with the Siege of Orgrimmar event that destroyed a whole zone almost, but one of the largest raids ever made that took
players around. For how long was Siege of Orgrimmar out? Was it over a year that it was like the only raid that people were really doing? Yeah, I think it was a little bit over a year, right? 14 months. That is crazy. Imagine if they did that now. Like, imagine if we had SOD, but we had phase 1 for a year. Oh my god.
Place on so many levels of Pandaria, Durotar, Orgrimmar, and a whole city underneath the Orc capital. Warlords of Draenor came out in 2014 and was, to this day, the single biggest upgrade to the overall world environment when it comes to textures. The landscapes in Draenor were richly detailed, featuring more complex terrain elements and environmental assets that gave the game an incredible, fresh, and modern feeling compared to Mists of Pandaria. This was accompanied by the first major character model updates. This massive overhaul of character models for some of
this is what I mean with the kind of Disney
major
look.
Character model updates. This massive overhaul of
that's the kind of Disney look. I don't know. So it was in VOD that it became kind of Disney, like with the characters and stuff like that. Yeah, that's what I mean. I mean, it's literally just like a preference, right? It's just like some people like it, some people don't like it. It's like that's just how it goes, right? What was my favorite expansion? I mean, my favorite version of WoW is Vanilla WoW. I would say, I don't know. It's hard to really say. I'm like in between. Nowadays, I would probably say TBC, honestly. Yeah, I think so. There are only two art styles, Disney and anime. Yeah, true, actually.
Character
TBC, really? I think so. Yeah, normally I would say Wrath of the Lich King, but I actually really enjoyed TBC. I did. I think some of the running animation in retail are what kill it for me. Yeah, but it's a preference, right? Like, some people like it, some people don't, and that's completely fine too. Brotherman, did you play Mob or not? The expansions I never played. I played a month of Cataclysm. I never played Mists of Pandaria. I played the last few weeks of Legion, and I played a little bit of VOD only. That's the expansions I never really touched. So like Cataclysm, I pretty much haven't played. Mob, I haven't played at all. And Legion, I pretty much didn't play either. Those are the expansions I didn't really play. Did I raid in Vanilla WoW? Back in the day, I didn't, but I did. I not on my own characters. I did a little bit of CG on one of my dad's friend's Hunter, and I did a little bit of Molten Core on my dad's friend's Hunter as well. I never got a character to 60 in Vanilla though. I got to 60 in like early TBC, I think.
For some of the original races in the game revolutionized the visual presentation
of the game.
Style now. People saw the Worgans and Goblins. They were blown away by the Pandaren, and they wanted the same treatment to the OG races in the game. Both Alliance and Horde races, including Orcs and Humans, received significant updates to their models, making them more detailed and appealing, especially with the facial expressions that made the past expansions almost unrecognizable. The new texture technology for the world was probably best represented through the garrison system. Every building, every wall, every fence and door was boosted in terms of their resolution and overall visual quality, and stood as a precedent for future architectural changes the game would have in the following years. Possibly the most ambitious expansion ever made to this day was Legion, which released in 2016. Every feature added, it came with a visual upgrade to pretty much everything. In terms of character animations and spell effects, the best example would be the new hero class Demon Hunter. They came with unique visual effects, particularly their metamorphosis abilities and use of fell magic. The introduction of artifact weapons was accompanied by improved textures for items in general. Not only did the new weapons look more striking and detailed, but the technology was used for the armors as well, while the garrison technology from Warlords of Draenor was used to create and improve player hubs in the form of the class order halls.
These are cool. Again, I never got to experience these. You can really see it when you compare like the old gear as well to new gear that they release. It is a whole different game, man. I prefer the old look, to be honest. I wish they would give us an option to old graphics in retail. I'd start playing retail more. I don't know. I don't like hate the graphics, but they're just not really like my style as much. Personally, I always correlate Legion release with me totaling my car and being home from work for 3 months. So many artifacts levels gained. Oh my god, dude. Have you seen the 2023 rewind? Yes, I have.
And every one of the class order halls had a distinct flavor emphasized with upgraded textures and particle effects. Legion added more dynamic weather effects, making the game world feel more alive and responsive to changing conditions while out in the open world, as well as an increase in draw distance, which was something that has evolved over the years with each passing expansion to what it ended up
that skybox is beautiful though. That is a beautiful skybox.
Was something that has evolved over the years with each passing expansion to what it ended up back then. And of course, the dungeons and raids received massive improvements to their architecture and overall visual appeal.
New graphics is like only up 2 soulless? No, I wouldn't say that. I don't think it's soulless. I wouldn't say that. I think it's just like, I don't know. To me, it doesn't feel like it has like the same... It's just, it looks like a lot of other games as well. I guess in a way a little bit soulless, I suppose, but... I think for me, it's just, it was very unique in Vanilla WoW, and it's very, you know, yeah, I guess it is a good way of explaining it, I suppose. No matter what Blizzard gear makes, nothing will beat the Dreadnought armor. Yeah, that looks good. Character is the world, you're thinking? Yeah, maybe it's character. It has character, not soul, right? Because it still has soul. It's just like the character. It's like more like, I don't know, it's hard to put it into words. It's just like a preference thing, I suppose, right? I think they overtuned the spellcasting and melee animations. Like, it's too much. I think it's probably true. It became Fortnite, Overwatch, Pixar. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, that's what I mean with the Disney look as well. Right? It became, like, very generic, but that's like the new kind of art style that games go for, right?
2018 marked the release of Battle for Azeroth and the start of a major backlash from the players in terms of the expansion's reception. Whether this contributed to the visual presentation of the expansion is unknown.
You can't say classic was generic? That's not what I said. Maybe I expressed myself wrong. That's not what I said. What the fuck are these stupid takes? That I prefer like classic WoW graphics over like the what? The more of these retrospect videos we watch, the more I realize that I just kind of don't like WoW. Like nowadays, I don't know. It's very much just like a preference thing, right? Like I prefer this thing, and some people prefer the other thing.
Say that BFA at the very least improved on a lot of aspects. It was also the first expansion where we received allied races,
but
where
it looks
the
good for what it is,
took
though.
Big liberties in character models, even when using older rigs from other races for their respective animations. It also continued to improve character models and animations,
adding more details,
though. Smoother movements and enhanced facial expressions for better visual storytelling. On top of the improved textures and some of the most visually striking skyboxes, BFA...
They're beautiful. Though the skyboxes look amazing, I will say that. They look awesome, dude. I wanted to say, wait, I forgot what I wanted to say. I have no goddamn idea. It might also be a lot of nostalgia. True, yeah, because like it is the game that I grew up playing and the game I really enjoyed, and then like the graphics changed a lot. So obviously I prefer the game that I grew up playing, right? That might definitely play in a huge factor for that. People hate on skyboxes because they're 2D, but I like it. I kind of like these skyboxes, dude.
They came with dynamic weather changes and environmental hazards, adding to the immersive experience. But for all its praises, it had some of the most unforgivable visual representation of a zone that ended up being the final raid. And yes,
this is what I mean. It's so different. It actually is crazy how different it is.
Visual representation.
This is a classic. I don't think this looks bad. I mean, yeah, okay, look at the trees. Like, it's literally a triangle polygon, right? But it kind of, it reminds me a little bit of Zelda and like those old, like Ocarina of Time and stuff like that. It's a different art style, right? It's a little bit scuffed, but I kind of like it, right? And when you change it,
of a zone that ended up being the final raid.
Damn, that's different, right? But this looks good too. It's just very different. It's just very, very different. It's just nostalgia. No, I think it's a mixture. I think it's a mixture of nostalgia and also just a different art style, right? And a lot of it has to do with shading as well, though, for sure.
And yes, I am talking about the Nyalotha JPEG skybox. The raid felt like it took 2 steps back from the step forward the expansion made.
Wait, was this actually a skybox? There's no way.
graphical design, which is a shame because the previous raids were
That's kind of
incredible.
funny.
And not to mention, Nazjatar was an artistic marvel in terms of immersing the
this
player
place looked
in an
amazing.
underwater zone that was sucked dry out of the sea so we can explore it.
Nazjatar looked amazing. I really liked that zone where you went down and you could see the water going up and stuff like that. That looked sick.
Lands, the black sheep of WoW expansions, made its debut with one of the most ambitious skybox changes, as if to make up for the JPEG it left us with in 8.3. Not only that, the new zones were entirely taken from what seemed to be a different game in terms of their visual aspect. They were heavily themed to their story and artistic depiction of whatever fantasy concept they were conveying in terms
of this zone. I don't remember the name of this zone. I loved this zone though. This zone looked really cool to me.
Death. Whether it was the vampiric Venthyr in Revendreth, the druidic Ardenwold forests, the undead machinations of Maldraxxus, or the heavenly afterlife of Bastion, each zone was polished with a color palette, unique textures resonating in the ground, flora and fauna to further immerse the player in their pocket world. The art direction, whether questionable or not, cannot be understated on how much it improved from BFA. With the Covenants being introduced, the player received access to a whole new package of spell animations and effects themed towards each individual zone and associated party. In terms of hardware improvements, by supporting DirectX 12 and ray tracing, World of Warcraft's graphics were further improved in Shadowlands, providing players with more stunning visuals and enhancing their overall gaming experience. Shadowlands continued to refine character models and animations, adding more detail and improved facial expressions, making characters appear more lifelike. It brought new environmental effects such as dynamic weather changes, particle effects, and atmospheric enhancement, all tying up in some of the most ambitious raid designs in terms of effects, texture quality, and even skyboxes. It did.
That looks nice though. The what is it called? The rays of sun coming through the sky and like the clouds. That actually looks really nice. I liked it a lot. But I like the Shadowlands. What is it called? The zones in Shadowlands were really cool in my opinion. The God Rays, it looks poggers, man.
Suffer from palette consistency, where at times it served them well with the Nathria raid, and other times it would be counterproductive with the Sanctum of Domination raid. For all its visual technological upgrades, the reception of some of the artistic choices left a lot to be desired, from the atmosphere to the color choices to paint the zones in what would have been their accurate depiction. The biggest counterpoint to their chosen color palette would be the Korthia zone, which remains to this day the most depressing and disliked zone ever made, and it had most to do with its graphical presentation. In fairness, Zereth Mortis, although artistically questionable, spiced up the color palette and lighting of their zones together with its accompanying raid, breathing a breath of fresh air into the game. The choice in architecture might not have resonated with everyone, but it would be undoubtedly unique and
I didn't like this zone personally. I actually hated this zone.
Clearly an upgrade, at least in the texture and particle effects department. And with that, we come to the present day with 2022's Dragonflight expansion. The first and most obvious change was the player UI. Although in the past this has received minor improvements from texture to icons, now it was completely scrapped and redone from ground up, adding another graphical element from WoW's history to the modern visual body. At the time of making
to make this, man. I barely played Dragonflight, so I won't say anything. I like the zones though.
In this video, the team is continuously improving the in-game assets and graphical design of the interface, together with spell effects for classes left behind, and likely more to come by the end of the expansion. With the strikingly beautiful new zones came an even higher draw distance and water effects. The improvement on the environment textures allowed the devs an increase in freedom when it comes to visually designing unique zones with more vibrant colors, completely contrasting the somber feeling players were left with in Shadowlands. The flora and fauna of the Dragon Isles blend naturally with each other from the use of logical color palettes. And in terms of zone design, the Zaralek Cavern has brought with itself an innovative way of creating terrain into already existing assets, with a seamless transition between the surface and the underground. The improvement to the character models came as a package deal with a new race, the Drakthir, that had more options for customization than any other race in the past. Once again, its artistic design being overall questionable. The theme of the expansion being heavily focused on vibrant colors is not only visible in the new race and class, with new spell effects, animations, and dynamic character movement.
Okay, I know what you're gonna say. I know, I can feel it already. Guzu, you're classic Andy, classic Andy, nostalgia Andy. I just like the older, like when you compare, if you compare classic like vanilla to Dragonflight, I really prefer vanilla. It just feels more like it has character and soul to it, right? Whereas it feels a lot more kind of just like a Disney vibe nowadays, a little bit. But that's my opinion on it. That's how I see it. It's literally just like a preference thing, right? Some people like one thing and some people like another. I can appreciate a lot of the things that they have made though, and like how the some of the stuff have changed. This guy's yapping so much. Honestly, welcome to streaming. Don't worry, War Within will save WoW. Honestly, true. I will say though, man, they are, dude. The graphics in the cinematics looks amazing though. Like the actual cinematics that they make. Your opinion is wrong. Well, you are wrong more than I am.
But also for all the customizations the players can interact with, from hair colors to dragon riding mounts, which on their own came as well with a new flying system that expands on the player's perspective on space and speed by cleverly manipulating the landscape to give the feeling of a high-octane dragon ride. The benefits of being a live game for almost 20 years has given World of Warcraft one of the most impressive visual journeys any media has undergone. Jam-packed with nostalgia, emotions, wonder, and excitement, the art team has continuously surprised people with better and better graphical assistance to contribute to their fun out in the world. And to have even more fun, it's not enough to simply be engrossed in the visual aspect of the game, but also a much more crucial thing is ignored by too many people when it comes to the enjoyment of the game. Find out what took the fun out of WoW, or at least one of the biggest reasons the fun was squashed, and how to get it back right here. See this? Here.
Okay, I mean, good interesting video. It can be a really hard thing to discuss about these things because it's like it's literally just like, yeah, it's so subjective. I like apples, you like oranges, right? That doesn't mean that apples are necessarily better than oranges or the other way around. It's just like what you prefer. But I think regardless though, it's interesting to see how the visual like depiction of the game has changed so much throughout the years. It is absolutely insane. Like, it's so crazy. By the way, apples are better than oranges, by the way.